Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika will step down before his fourth term ends on April 28th. That is according to a statement from his office. The ailing 82-year-old's rule has been challenged by massive weekly protests demanding he resign, but it's unclear if Monday's announcement will satisfy Bouteflika's opponents, who are calling for an overhaul of the entire political system. Let's go now to our correspondent Imran Khan. He is monitoring all the developments from neighbouring Tunisia. Reports have been circulating throughout the day, Imran, that this might happen. What does the statement say?
Well, let me just read it to you. It says, after he named the new government on March 31st, 2019, President Bouteflika will ensure important decisions that will ensure the constitutional rights and the continuity of the work of the state institutions during the transitional period that will take place from the day the president submits his resignation. Now, that's key, the fact that he's actually resigning. He was given a choice under Article 102. That article suggests that he has two choices. The first choice was to resign. Clearly, that's the route he's decided to take. And the second one was that he would be forcibly removed from office due to ill health, as long as there was a two-thirds majority in the parliament. Now, there was a big cabinet reshuffle overnight where a number of people were let go. However, key positions were kept by key figures, and that includes Qaid Abu Saleh, who is the chief of the army. He's a very important figure, very powerful figure in Algerian politics. Now, is any of this going to appease the protesters? Well, the protesters say we want a radical overhaul of everything political so far, and that includes reducing the role of the army in public life, includes getting rid of the opposition, and includes removing Bouteflika's government and anybody connected to it. So the fact that he's resigning doesn't mean that the protests will die down. In fact, what we're hearing across social media is the fact that people are saying, we will see you on Friday out in the streets, and we will be in bigger number. There was 1 million people in the capital, Algiers, and 1 million more in the outskirts and in the towns outside of Algiers protesting on Friday. So we're expecting to see a large number of people come out in the streets. This isn't enough to satisfy them. So why do this now? Well, it's likely that the government and the army are scrambling to try and find something that might appease the protesters. But the more that the government seem to do, the bigger the demands of the protesters get.
Imran, thank you very much for that. For now, that's Imran Khan joining us live from neighbouring Tunis. We are going to get more on this now. We're joined by Amia Achouche, an Algerian journalist, and she is live for us from the capital, Algiers. Very good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. So what do you make of the statement from the presidency calling for the continuity of state institutions, which is exactly the opposite of what protesters have been calling for?
Well, the statement of the presidency called for the continuity of state institutions, and it's not, I wouldn't say that it's against what the people have been asking for, because, you know, the continuity means that the country will keep going smoothly, and, you know, we need a smooth transitional period. And I don't think anybody can be against that. What people are against is the regime, and what we mean by the regime is not only the president, but everybody around the presidency and everybody connected to the presidency. And so the resignation of the president that we're expecting any time now, some unconfirmed reports are saying that tomorrow could be the day, but we don't know. But anyway, he will resign before the 28th of April, but that is not enough. People on Friday are expected to go out massively and protest against the government that was set up yesterday, that was announced yesterday, and that was, there was a unanimous rejection of this government because it only contained, either old figures of the regime or people connected to it. And so people are saying you should all go away and we should have new faces to represent a young generation of Algeria that, is a country that is characterized by a very large number of young people. And so, to answer your question, the resignation is not nearly enough to appease the anger of the people.
And so what is enough now, the complete overhaul that protesters are calling for? What does that look like?
I think people are against a transitional period that is run by the regime, because there will be a transitional period after April 28th when the official term of President Bouteflika will be over. But the question is, who will run the transition period? If the current regime runs the transition period, then the revolution or the demands are definitely not met, because they would only put somebody else that will serve the benefit, the interests of the current regime. And so people are calling for a neutral transitional government, people that have not served in the previous government, or people that were not connected to it. Of course, this is not easy, because right now people are saying no to everybody. So be it pro-government or even opposition figures are being completely rejected by the people. And so even new faces are afraid to step up and say we're here, because they're afraid of rejection, because there is a sense of distrust from the people to anybody that's in the political life.
And what about Ms. Achouche, the military's role in all of this? Because the army chief, who is a very familiar and known face, has come out on the side of protesters, asking for Article 102 of the Constitution to be invoked, where the Constitutional Council rules on Bouteflika's fitness for office. But the protesters themselves are saying that they don't want the military in charge, yet the army chief is one of 6 government ministers out of 27 who has kept their post in the cabinet reshuffle.
Well, definitely, I think it's logical for people to be against the army meddling in political life. We don't want another military state. We want a civil state, and that's why people are taking to the streets. But I think in this context, people are calling for the army because there is a very good relationship between the average Algerian and the army. People love the army. People think that the army is an authentic or a sincere core, away from politics. And so that's why people are calling for the army to step in and force, between brackets, force the people in the regime to step down and leave their posts for the younger generation. But I don't think people support any role of the army in political life. The army is only needed right now to make sure the country stays safe. This is very important. We should not forget that Algeria has been through a very bloody civil war because of a very similar scenario where the army stepped in to overthrow an elected regime, and it led to a bloody civil war. We don't want that to happen, and so we want the army to have a tight grip on the country security-wise, but that's it. Yes, the head of the army was one of 7 people who kept their posts as minister, as Minister of Defense in the government. But this is logical because we don't want to disrupt the army. We don't want to appoint somebody else, and it's very delicate. We have one of the strongest armies in the region, and it's a sovereign institution on itself, and we don't want. I don't think anybody wants this to be messed with, and that's why. But the Algerian people are almost unanimous in their love for the army, in their respect for the army, but also saying that, listen, you should not meddle in political life. We should keep the army separate from any political practice.
Amia Achouche joining us live from Algiers there. Thank you very much for your time on this. We do appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.